In this video, we will show you how to replace your vehicle speed sensor on this Honda Accord. This will be located along the back side of your engine and transmission. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. The location is just underneath our air intake system here, so we're going to remove that. We'll follow it to the upper air filter housing. To remove this, you'll find that it has 4 bolts, but to gain access to one of them, you're going to lift this up and out of position. Now we can start removing those 8mm headed mounting bolts holding this in place. Let's follow the air intake. We'll dislodge the cable from this area. Just pop it right out of place. Lift that. We'll lift up on this wiring harness as well. If you were to look just behind this area, you're going to find a small Phillips headed clamp. You can see a little bit of it here. Just go ahead and use a Phillips head screwdriver to loosen this just enough that we can slide this out of place. Now, as we start pulling this away, it's going to give us slack in this area. We'll squeeze the clamp and slide this out of place. Use some pliers for this. Hold that, slide that out of place. Remove the clamp from the area so you don't drop it. Slide this out of place. Just give it a quick inspection and set it aside. Now, since we have the air filter housing opened up, it's important to make sure that you remove and inspect the air filter. If it needs to be replaced, go ahead and replace it with a new one. Now we have a clear view down inside this area. If you were to look down here, you're going to find your vehicle speed sensor and the wiring connector. Let's start disconnecting the connector from that vehicle speed sensor. Go ahead and squeeze on the locking tab and pull it up and out of place. Once you have that disconnected, you always want to look at both ends and make sure you do not see any corrosion. Now, before we start removing the vehicle speed sensor from the transmission, it's important to make sure that you clean up around the area. We'll use some compressed air. The next thing we can do is continue on to removing our 2 10mm headed mounting bolts holding this down and in place. You can see one right along the back side here. The other one's on the other side of the vehicle speed sensor. Let's get the one that's harder to get to here. There we are. Inspect your mounting hardware. As you remove it, replace it as necessary. This one looks fine. Now we can get the one that's out in the open here. Now we can remove that bolt and the speed sensor. There's our bolt. There's that. Now that we have the vehicle speed sensor out of there, the next thing we want to do is have a look down at the transmission where the new one will be mounted. You're going to find a small adapter right here. Go ahead and pull that up and out of place. You'll find that your new vehicle speed sensor came with a new one. Now the next thing we'll do is clean up the mounting area here. Use a clean rag for that. Give it a quick wipe. Close inspection. We'll give the O-ring a close inspection. If it looks like it's torn, worn, or damaged, just go ahead and replace it. Now it's time to install our adapter. We want to make sure that we have the area with the two edges protruding out, facing down towards the transmission. We'll make sure it aligns and press it down as far as possible. I've got it in there. Now we'll just go ahead and give it a little wiggle and continue on sliding it down if necessary. Oh yeah, that went down quite a bit. Now we can install our brand new vehicle speed sensor. Along the bottom area here is where that O-ring seal will sit, so we want to make sure it's well lubricated. I'm just going to use a thin amount of petroleum jelly in this area. Now we'll take this and put it in place, aligning the center shaft and the mounting bolt holes. There we are. It really only goes on one way. With that in place, we'll continue on with our two mounting bolts. For these, you want to make sure you start each of them in by hand. Once they're started in, you can go ahead and snug them up. Let's go with the one that's easiest to get to here out in the open. Let's get the other one in there. Okay, they're both started in. Let's go ahead and snug them up. Okay, right there's bottomed out. Make sure that's snug. Now we'll torque these to 10 foot-pounds. Let's connect in that connector now. Press it in, listen for a click, give it a little tug to make sure it's completely secure. That feels good. Now it's time for the air intake system. Let's start with the air filter. Make sure that's placed in properly. We'll continue on with the upper air filter box and the air intake leading all the way over to that throttle body. Lift up on this cable. This will slide down and underneath this cable. Align this area with your throttle body here. We'll press it in as far as possible. Before you tighten this clamp, we'll pause here and make our way all the way over to the upper air filter housing. We'll get this in place, spring it right down. At this point, you want to make sure you tighten all 4 of your 8mm headed mounting bolts, holding this in place. We'll get this in place. It's going to slide right down along the front here. Now, if you were to look under this area, you're going to find where your battery wire needs to sit. We'll make sure that's secured. Now we'll make our way this way. We're going to secure our cable. Should slide right on there. When we go to put this tube in place, we'll make sure that we do have our clamp as well. Slide that right into the hose as far as possible. Reinstall the clamp into the original position. Let's make our way to this clamp. We're going to tighten this up while we can still gain access. Use our Phillips head for this, of course. Once you feel as though you have that tight, give it a tug, make sure it's secure. Now it's time for our wiring and our hoses here. We'll take that wire, slide it down into position. Same thing with the hose. Tight fit. Okay friend, we finished the installation. At this point, you want to hop in the passenger compartment, start up your vehicle, let it run for a little while. Make sure you have no check engine light and no running condition, and then take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.